that we can practice on. Hi, Giselle. It's just you and me right now. Let's see. I'm trying to find some scraps that we can use. Okay. Whoop. All right. So, this piece of fabric is huge for this hoop. All right. French knots, let's do this. Okay, so French knots, the size of the French knot is determined by how many strands you use and how many times you wrap it. So I'm going to show you, this is the strands, 3 or 6 strands, and then if we wrap it 1, 2, or 3 times, and then down here we'll do colonial knots, which are similar. They are similar. Okay. You do not have to do this practice piece. I gotta get a screwdriver to tighten that. Hold on. If your fabric is not tight while you're trying to do French knots, it makes them a lot harder. So make sure your hoop is tight. Okay. Okay, where's our needle? All right, so I'm gonna do French knots in green and colonial knots in red. Okay, so I'm going to show you 3 strands first, and then we will do the 6 strands. Okay. So like anything else, we're going to start with a little knot at the end. Okay. So French knots, we're going to come up from the back. And what we're going to do is we're going to hold some tension. We're going to wrap the thread around our needle 1 time. And then we're going to go down right next to where we came up. Right next to it, but not in the same hole. If you go into the same hole, you're more likely to pull your knot through the fabric. So then we're going to move our knot down to the fabric and then pull our needle through. Okay, so that's 3 strands, 1 wrap. So same thing, we're going to come up, we're going to wrap it 2 times, and then we're going to go back down next to where we came up, but not, let me zoom in a little. So we're going to wrap it 2 times. We're going to put our needle back down, slide our knot to the bottom, keep some tension on your thread, and then push your needle through. Okay? And then wrap it 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Back down, slide it to the bottom, hold that tension, and then pull your needle through. So you can kind of see, these ones look super similar, but I think I pulled that one a little bit tighter than that one. So you don't have to pull these, you don't have to twist it, like wrap it super tight. Like there's still some wiggle room in there. If you pull it too tight, you're not gonna be able to get your needle through. So wrap it, slide it to the bottom. It does not have to be super, super tight, because if it's too tight, your needle will struggle to get through that. Whoop, sorry, off camera a little. Okay, so there's 3 strands. We're gonna do it again, but let me double over my thread. So if I'm doing I don't know what I was going to say. All right. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. I keep getting off camera. All right, so we're going to go, we've got 6 strands. We're going to do the same thing. Wrap it 1 time. Pull our thread down to the bottom. Pull that through. 2 times. And 3 times. Okay, so one thing that I like about French knots is if you keep your thread looser, it'll make your knot not quite so symmetrical. I like to do this like for like bushes and trees and stuff like that. But if you wrap it, keep it loose. So you still want to pull it down, but don't pull it tight like that. Just let it be a little loose. And then you can get like these big puffy French knots that are really fun for creating some texture. So you can kind of see it's kind of puffy and fun. Good for clouds, good for all kinds of things. So there we go. All right, so next we're gonna do colonial knots. If French knots are hard for you, give colonial knots a try. Or if you've never done colonial knots, try it out. Okay, so with colonial knots, we're gonna come up. We're gonna make a backwards C. We're gonna do our needle under the C, and then we're gonna wrap this around it. So we've got like a figure 8. And then we're gonna tie the knot that way. Okay. Try it again. So we've got our backwards C. We're gonna do our needle under this way, and then we're gonna wrap it over the top. So we've got like a figure 8 or an infinity sign or whatever you wanna call it, and then pull it tight and down. One thing I like about colonial knots is I feel like I can keep them a lot more symmetrical, where French knots I feel like just kind of get crazy sometimes. So if I'm doing like polka dots and I want them all the same size, I generally do colonial knots. But that's just me. So depending on how many strands you're using, like these you can make bigger with more strands, but these are going to be the same size unless you use more or less strands. So one more time. So you've got a C, backwards C. Put our needle under there, wrap it around to get our infinity sign, and then back down. There we go. Okay, so we are going to use knots today. All right. Oh, I was going to use red. I forgot. Well, there you go. You get all green. All right, so let's get our hoop on there. All right. We are going to do our pond today. All right, so first thing we're gonna do is our water in our pond. So we are going to start with our 3761, which is our lighter blue. I'm gonna use all 6 strands. If you want it smoother, I would go with 3 or 4 strands, but I'm gonna leave that up to you. I am having a hard time threading this needle. There we go. So we're not gonna do anything fancy. We're just gonna satin stitch this because the edge of it is gonna be all French knots. So we've already done satin stitch. One thing is just when you're filling in a space, I usually start in the middle and then work my way across one side and then the other. Some people go back and forth between sides. That's fine as well. Whatever way you want to do it is totally fine. I just don't think we need to spend a ton of time on this because the French knots will take us some time. And this is meant to be like a little pond. So if it's not perfectly circular, that's fine. We're also, like, the edge of this is gonna have French knots around it. So if you're a little worried about the edge, don't be. It's a good time to practice like filling in a shape with satin stitch. But if it's not perfect, then that's okay because we're gonna cover up the edge. I'm just gonna do one more. Usually when I'm finishing off something round, I like to come up kind of at an angle and then back down at an angle next to it. I feel like that gives it a better like rounded shape. Okay, and I'm gonna come back down here and fill in the other side. All right, a couple more. Okay, I'm just gonna do that one more on the edge. Okay, tiny little pond. So you could also, if you wanted to put in some of the 518, you could kind of give it some extra color or whatever. You could put both colors in your needle at the same time. You could go back and just do a couple of stitches with the dark blue if you wanted to. I'm just gonna leave it for now. Okay, so we need to get out our gray. The gray we are using is 642. It's kind of a green brown kind of gray. I don't know. So I'm going to recommend that you use different sized French knots. Hi, Jana. We're gonna fill in all of this space with French knots. So this is a good time to practice different sizes, different thread counts, tightness of how tight you're pulling the thread. So you can have some puffy and some not so puffy French knots. So I've got, right now, I'm just using a scrap. So I've got 4 strands is what I'm gonna start with. So if I'm doing like random French knots that I kind of just want like all different sizes, I usually start with one idea and go from there, and then I'll move on to different. So I'm just gonna start here and do some 3 wrap and keep them kind of loose so that they're a little bit bigger. And I'll just scatter those around. And then I'll do some smaller ones. Do some smaller ones next. So the reason I like to do some big and some small is that this is kind of a lot of, I mean, it's not a ton of space, obviously, but I just want to make sure that we can fill up this space without getting overwhelmed with how many French knots it is. Okay, so I'm going to go back and just kind of go around it again and do some smaller ones. I'm just going to wrap it twice and keep them a little bit tighter. If you are not loving French knots, you can do all of this with colonial knots and then just change up how many strands you're using. So use 6 until that piece of thread is gone, and then go back and use 4 strands or 3 strands or whatever. Sorry, my connection is slow. We have too many people on the internet at our house.
We have 30 people on it.
Lincoln, please. So if you're gonna use more than 6 strands, I would put it in your needle, double it over, and then tie it at the bottom like this, rather than having like 12 strands in there and then doubling it over, because then you're trying to pull like 24 threads through. Like if you have like 12 strands in your needle, then you're trying to pull 24 because this is doubled over through your fabric. So it's a lot harder to do. So keep that in mind. Hey, Link, why don't you go get dressed and ask Gemma to get dressed as well? Okay, as soon as this is gone, I am going to get some white mixed in with my gray, just to give it a little bit more, I don't know, some more color, some more depth. The other thing with French knots is, do you see how twisted this is? Once it starts to get twisted like this, I like to just, when I go down, I just let my needle like hang for a minute and just untwist everything. Yeah. Okay, so let me tie that off. All right. I'm kind of liking working with 4 strands, so I'm gonna do 2 and 2. My live is not going well today. Having trouble loading. Gemma and Lincoln? What? You're being too loud. All right, so I'm gonna do 2 of the white and 2 of the gray. All right, get this in my needle. I'm just gonna do a few just so you can kind of see what this looks like, and then I'm gonna go because my internet is not cooperating. All right. So I'm gonna start with some 2 wraps. And then yeah, just keep going until this space is filled with French knots. So once I get like around this one more time, I'll have enough kind of random ones, I feel like, that I'll just start filling in the space. Like I won't jump around like I am right now, but I just like to make sure that there's a good smattering of kind of different sizes and shapes and colors and all of that. Oh, Jana's internet is going out too. Okay, not just me. Government is shutting us down, you guys. They don't like us doing this. Okay, I am going to let you go then. And hopefully the internet will be better next week. Maybe it's Instagram. Maybe it's not the internet, it's Instagram. Anyways, okay, fill in this space and then play catch up this weekend. Get what you can done. And next week we will do some plants. Are we excited? I'm excited to get some color on here. So, yeah, let me see your progress. I love to share where you're at. So if you tag me in your post or on your stories, I can reshare it so the group can see where you're at and we can enjoy each other's work. All right, have a good weekend and I will see you on Monday. Bye.